What is up, everyone? I am TST's the Mudman, and it's time to figure out what we are going to do this weekend in Gods Unchained. So let's start things off like we always do. We're on gudex.com, set to the last 7 days at Mythic Meta by God Popularity. And it is just like how it's been for the past couple of weeks. We got Nature on the top, followed by War, then Deception in the third slot, Magic, Death, and Light pulling up the rear. Generally for this week's meta compared to like the last couple of weeks meta is that like everything seems to have slowed down a whole bunch. There's like a great new 7 mana neutral card in City Planner. That's a great card for any control or mid-range leaning control style deck, whether it's like budget or expensive. And then Nature, of course, has Sage of Renewal. So the entire meta has sort of slowed down. So you're going to be seeing a lot more greedy decks in comparison to a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So before we jump into any specific deck list, let's go over each god and what their most popular archetypes are, what you're going to run into this weekend. So we've got Nature. You're going to be seeing a lot of mid-range Nature, some, probably mostly mid-range leaning towards aggressive, and some mid-range leaning towards control. The control leaning mid-range decks are going to have that aforementioned City Planner and Sage of Renewal, so they're going to have lots of value, lots of healing, lots of great control tools, mid-range, control Nature. Super strong archetype nowadays. War is generally Control War or Slayer War. Slayer War is slightly more popular, but Control War is probably the strongest deck in the meta currently. It is super good. And then we have Deception in the third slot, which makes a lot of sense because Deception is really good at generating a lot of value. And with the meta slowing down, gods that can generate lots of value like Deception, their stocks can go up. So like mid-rangey Deception decks that still revolve around like the Hollow and Ludius Dedekind to get more value are super strong. And then we have Magic, which is in sort of a weird spot right now. Technically, the best performing Magic archetype is Portal Wrangler Magic, but that makes up like less than 1% of the meta at Mythic rank, so it's super uncommon. The most common archetype is like mid-range, not mid-range, sorry. It's like tempo spell boosty Magic, and I really don't like that archetype in the meta right now, just because since everything's so slow and healing is so abundant in Gods Unchained, decks that rely on cards like Epiphany are going to have a really hard time, getting to the finish line. So, and then you also have like Ramp Magic. Ramp Magic's probably the archetype you want to go with if you don't go with Portal Wrangler Magic and you want to go with Magic, but Ramp Magic is a super new archetype in this current meta, and I'm not super sure we have a great list, to run with lots of consistency. Death's best archetype is obviously Board Wipe Death, but like Portal Wrangler Magic, the Board Wipe Death deck is super expensive and therefore not particularly prevalent. So the most common death decks you'll see will be Zombie Death, which are not particularly strong, so that's no big deal. And then Light is the least popular god, and it will probably be Zoolight if you happen to run into any Light decks. That being said, Light really likes being the most aggressive deck in the meta. So with every other god slowing down, Light gets, a little bit better. The best way to deal with Light, like Zoolight, is to make your own early board state. So if decks are cutting their 1 and 2 mana cards for more value-y stuff, then Light is in like a marginally better spot. That being said, you probably still don't want to go with Light for your weekend ranked run. But yeah, now that we went over that little generalization of the meta, let's jump into some specific archetypes. Alright, so the first deck list I want to go over is the deck list that won last week's weekend ranked event. It had a perfect weekend run at 25 out of 25, and not only did it go 25-0, this guy also got the bonus pack, and he didn't lose a single game. So 30-0, absolutely perfect weekend for Mochi Mochi. And we're not going to go over every single card in this Control War deck, since we've done that every week for the past like 8 weeks. If you want a more detailed look on Control War, check out any of the last couple of videos. We're just going to go over the parts of this deck that make it unique. So like I said in the beginning of the video, the meta has gotten slower. So this is super similar to a normal Control War deck, but it's much greedier. So all Control War decks usually have strength in numbers for lots of endgame value. Avatar is iffy. This deck has both, and it also has a poly. So this deck goes to 9 mana easily. It's got lots and lots of stuff. You might notice there's no demos. Instead, it has a Spiral Golem, the original demo counter. If you are unaware, Spiral Golem is unaffected by sleep. He attacks based on his card text. At the start of your turn, attacks a random enemy creature. If there are no creatures, he's allowed to go face. And I imagine Spiral Golem is absolutely nutty with Soul Survivor, makes it an 11-10. So that's kind of cool. But besides that, fairly standard control war deck, just lots of late game value. And if we learned anything from these videos, if you got the list, if you got the cards to make a control war list, you'll get lots of wins. So this should definitely be a deck that you consider for your weekend ranked run. Next up, we've got Board Wipe Death, which is probably the second best deck in the meta right now. And let's be real, this is Board Wipe Death. The deck is super expensive. It's been pretty much the same since forever, so we are going to speed run through this deck analysis. This is Board Wipe Death. It was made by Flavorous. He's really good. This deck went 24 out of 25. Board Wipe Death heals. It sleeps. It does it again with Canopic Hoarder. Then it clears the board a whole bunch of times and kills you with either Packery's Monster or Poly or Mill. This deck mills. Maybe it does all three. Doesn't matter. Archetype is super good. If you have the cards to make Board Wipe Death, if you're willing to spend 30 plus hours doing your weekend, then this is a great archetype. You'll get tons of wins. And time. Let's jump into the next archetype. Alright, now let's talk about Deception. I think Deception is in a really cool spot in the meta right now. Like I said in this whole video, the meta is getting slower. Deception has a couple of cards that just generate lots and lots of value, and if the meta gets slower, generating value becomes way better. Is like this particular deck list, this only has the Hollow as well as Patient Pickpocket for value generating things. But if you wanted to slot in Ludia's Decadence, if you wanted to put in like a Cutthroat's pretty good in this meta right now. You have lots of ways to get tons of value, but the Hollow is your main one. This card can just get you so many resources, which is super good if your opponent's just going to be trying to remove your cards every turn. If you can get infinite cards, they will eventually run out of stuff to destroy. But generally this is just your normal aggressive Deception deck. You've got your strong cards like Armor Lurker, Switch Duelist, Skeleton Heavy, Minosian, Infiltrator. Your Dark Knives to buff something up. When you talk about Dark Knives, you gotta at least mention the Guild Enforcer. He's good on his own, but his armor makes it so Orpheo's Distraction doesn't actually hurt him. So you can plop a Dark Knives on him, make him 6 attack, and just go face and cheat him every single turn, distract him every single turn, and just win the game with him alone. And one really cool thing to note with this deck is it has Professor of Murder, which was buffed in the most recent balance patch, along with a lot of 7-mana domain-specific cards. This is a 7-mana 6/6 with Hidden. When you play it, you summon 2 1/1 Rogue Skulkers with Deadly and Hidden, so that's super strong. And then also, whenever you summon a creature, it gives them Hidden. So, that's a mountain of text. It does so many different things, one of which is being a big 6/6. We've learned from Giant Penguin, 6 attack is very threatening. Then you've got 2 deadly creatures, you hide everything else. This card just does way too many things for it to be bad. It seems like a very strong card. So I am stoked to see Professor for Murder getting some play. But yeah, I'm not sure if Deception's going to be the best archetype this weekend, and Deception can go a bunch of ways. The absolute best value generating aggressive Deception deck probably slots in the Atlantean package, but that is super Genesis-y, so not everyone may have that. I do recommend maybe taking out some Umbra Arrows and putting in some Ludia's Decadence. I think they are really strong at the moment. They're strong all the time. But yeah, Deception is really cool. It might not be the absolute best deck this weekend, but I think it's going to be really fun. I think it'll perform well. So if you like Deception, then this could be the week for you. Alright, so now let's go over the most popular god in nature. Just like last week, I've got an expensive nature list as well as a budget-friendly list. This first list is the expensive variant. It was made by the Sambam. Currently 12-0, absolutely undefeatable. And we're going to glance over the cards, like Canopy, Barrage, Flame Blade, and Underbrush Boar, and just talk about the cards that make Control Nature. No need to talk about the nature cards that are in literally every single nature deck. So, we got Avatar, that's, fringe, it's very control-y. But it's, in most decks. Veilborn Minotaur has been becoming much more popular recently, mostly because Brazen Moose has been nerfed. It no longer destroys demos or Guild Enforcers. So if you're going to play a 5-mana creature that can't destroy those guys, you might as well play Veilborn Minotaur. Not only is he not confused, but it can generate you a random nature card. And like we've been saying all video, value generation is good in this slower meta. I've got the Enchanted Vines in here. Enchanted Vines seems to be more consistent than the Hunt generally, seeing as it doesn't care about cumulative health totals, just deals 4 all around. Giant Penguin, still as good as always. And then we've got Sage of Renewal, which is the main reason why Nature has been, pushing up their curve. This card is absolutely bonkers. We talked about it a ton last week, but let's talk about it again because it's so nuts. It's a 7 mana 6/6 3 Gen 2. When you play it, you refresh 4 mana and you delve 4 mana's worth of spells. And Nature's spells between manas 1 and 4 are really diverse. You can clear your opponent's board, you can heal for 28, you can generate tons of resources. So literally whatever you need to happen at 7 mana, Sage of Renewal can give you. And one thing that is super critical with Sage of Renewal is it can also get you Untamed Regrowth, which if you play that alongside Sage of Renewal, you can play a second 7 mana creature. So you can play 2 7 mana creatures in one turn, which is very obviously broken. Then we've got the Gorilla Gardener, who has been fairly popular this past week. It's just a big beat stick. It has immediate impact with its Blitz and Overkill. Whenever it destroys a creature, it makes those vibrant fruits, and that combos well with his backline. So you have to deal with the fruits before you can deal with him, and when you deal with the fruits, it buffs him, and he becomes harder to deal with, so the whole situation just scales out of control. And in the neutral slots, we have Jason for more of that value. And then we have Ashen Drake, which used to be extremely popular like a few years ago, but has fallen out of favor. But I really like it in this this high curve nature list, just because it's an extremely high tempo card for 7 mana. And now that we have Sage of Renewal, nature loves being at 7 mana. So you can sort of think of Ashen Drake as like a much worse, more linear version of Sage of Renewal. It's a big clump of stats, just like the Sage, and it removes a bunch of stats from your opponent's side of the board and or deals a bunch of damage to their face, so it's super consistent. Why not play Ashen Drakes if you're trying to beat 7 mana? And then the last card that we've got to talk about is City Planner. This is another card that was just buffed in this last balance patch. It is a 7 mana 7/19 altogether, which is obviously just super huge, but those stats are distributed over 3 bodies. It's this 7/7 obviously and 2 ramparts. So the ramparts protect the big offensive creature, and of course nature is the most popular god in the meta. Nature likes to deal with these big creatures with lightning strikes, and he makes 2 guys next to him to absorb those lightning strikes, so it sort of turns that off. It also just completely stops the hunt. The hunt deals 8 damage. This is 19 health just on his own, so the hunt doesn't do nearly enough. Enchanted Vine is very popular. It does 4 damage to everything. That doesn't destroy a single creature City Planner makes. So City Planner is neutral, and he is just the bane of nature's existence. So City Planner is definitely a card you should think about adding to your decks this weekend, because nature is definitely going to be popular. But now that we've gone over this expensive deck a bit, let's jump into the more budget-friendly version. This list was made by Mighty Uncle, who is a legend amongst budget nature players. He is super good. This deck has played 21 games, or the creator has played 21 games with a 90% win rate. And this deck is a bit more aggressive than the last one. It still has that extremely powerful Sage of Renewal as well as Gorilla Gardener at the top end. But, you can see with these cards like Skeleton Heavy, as well as Finian Fruit Bear and Low Hanging Fruits, this deck is more like true blue mid-range. This deck can definitely beat its opponents by like turn 6 or 7. Let's see. Like we got the Finian Fruit Bear in here. That's an obvious change from the last deck. Much more aggressive. Got the Celestial Stag, which is it's always really good, but in this slower meta, generating cards is better than it's ever been. Mooncray Cyclops is interesting. It's been a long time since he's been around, but since decks are removing some of their 2 and 3 mana creatures, maybe Mooncray Cyclops is contesting on the board less often. He can snowball out of control. Besides that, just a fairly standard mid-range nature deck. Of course, with that added Sage of Renewal because it's just so nutty. And if you like nature, nature has only improved in these past couple of weeks, so it should be a great deck for this weekend. Alright, now we are on to Magic, and just, first and foremost, I don't think this is Magic weekend. I don't recommend playing Magic. Technically, the best performing Magic archetype is Portal Wrangler Magic. This is obviously not Portal Wrangler Magic, this is Ramp Magic. This deck has a great win rate. The creator has played 41 games. He has an 82% win rate. Really quite strong. Like I said in the beginning of the video, I don't like tempo magic for this current meta. There's just too much healing. If you really want to play tempo magic, you gotta take out your epiphanies, make your whole game plan based off like Oni attacking multiple times, which I don't think is consistent. So maybe Ramp Magic is the archetype to go with if you really want to play Magic. That being said, I have not played this archetype at all. in this current meta, so I don't have much of a frame of reference. And one thing that I think is very strange about this deck list is, as you can see, it has 8 7-mana plus cards, and none of these cards are the Fray. And the Fray is an 8-mana card, you foresee some stuff, and then the cards that you draw become 2 mana. So if you have 2 9-mana cards in Echophone and Poly, as well as 8-mana cards like Healing and Elite, I don't know why you wouldn't want to see if you can get them for 2 mana. Like, that being said, like I said, I played no Ramp Magic in this current meta, so what do I know? Like, that being said, this list has a fairly good win rate. I don't personally believe in Magic. But, if you want to try it out, this could be a great list. I hope you enjoyed this high-level analysis. And last, but maybe not least, we have Zoolight. This list was made by Unchained. He's been around forever. He's a super good player. He's known for his unique tempo-oriented decks. And Light is in a really strange place in the meta right now because at Mythic rank, Light is so unpopular that it's difficult to even search a Light deck. Like, for anyone who doesn't know, if you search decks on GU Decks and you filter by 1 day, for a deck to qualify as searchable, you have to have at least 15 games played. If you move to 3 days or more, it has to be at least 25 games played. And no joke, there were literally 2 Light decks that qualified that had that many games played within like 1 or 2 days, or like 1 or 3 days. So it seems like most Mythic players are only playing Light for their Gauntlet. That being said, like I said in the beginning of the video, if Light can be the most aggressive deck in the meta, Light really likes that. Obviously, Light got very nerfed with its strongest card, Radiant Dawn, getting hit in the last balance patch, and now only buffs +1/+1. It's still anti-sleep, which is important because, Light has lots of ward stuff. It also has Radiant Dawn, obviously, so it's very good against sleep. A lot of control archetypes in Gods Unchained rely on sleep, and the meta is very control-y at the moment. Like, that being said, War and Nature, the 2 most popular gods, they don't rely on sleep. So, keep that in mind. But, the best way to deal with Zoolight is to kill their 1 and 2 mana creatures with your own 1 and 2 mana creatures. So since the meta is becoming slower, a lot of lists are, taking out some of their early game creatures in favor for more high value cards and like higher mana cost cards. So there's a chance that Zoolight can spill on the board, keep a decent board state, play Radiant Dawn, keep their board state still, play Canonized. This deck has Parthene Parcinium, which I actually really like in Zoolight. Obviously you have like the CERN combo where you can draw your entire deck or, buff Lysander or whatever. But mainly it's just there to make your Summon Acolyte God Power summon 5/2s instead of 2/2s, and 5/2s kill opponents. So, 5/2s are big. Yeah, but like I was saying, if the meta is slow enough for Light to consistently spill on the board and then buff their stuff, then maybe Light is good. Like, that being said, even if Light becomes stronger, I don't think this is a deck that goes 25 out of 25. I just think Light is better than it was a few weeks ago, despite the fact that it is so unpopular. So if you like playing Light, I think Light has gotten stronger. I think you should go with aggressive Light, because I think you'll be running into far fewer aggressive opponents. That being said, Light is still not great, but choice is yours. Okay, so now that we've done all the thinking, now that we've scoured GU decks for the best possible deck list, what is the conclusion? What is the best deck to play over the weekend? Well, in my opinion, Control War is still the best deck in the meta. I think it's the strongest and most consistent. If you are looking for good and fun, some sort of value-oriented deception deck could be great. And then there is, of course, the most popular god of all, Nature. Super strong. Sage of Renewal is nuts. But if there's one thing to remember when you're making your deck for this weekend, it is City Planner. City Planner is the bane of Nature's existence. Nature is the most popular god. If you are going to 7 mana, you might want to slot in 1 or 2 City Planners to counter all of those Nature guys out there. But whatever you go with, make sure you have fun. Tell us how you did in the TST Discord, and have a wonderful day. Hey, you! Did you know that subscribing to the TST YouTube channel will increase your win rate by 6.9%? So what are you waiting for? Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for notifications. And while you're at it, equip Scythe of the Harvest and attack the like button directly in the face. Bye-bye!